Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Maurice.
And this is WWE Hall of Famer, Mr. USA, Tony Atlas.
Tony, the fans might have missed you back on January 19th. We had a little bit of snow in the Boston area, but you're going to be back Friday night, March the 1st, right here at MWF Studios. We want the fans to come down. Admission is free.
Yes, and not only that, Boston Media is the best, is the beast of the East. SOS, simply out of sight. Often imitated, but never duplicated.
I don't think anyone could duplicate what you and I created.
No, because it's raw.
Because I'll tell you this, there's many...
No strip, just say what we think, say what we mean. It's raw.
Many people tried to copy what we did with the Iron Sheik in this studio, and they were never able to get the recipe right, so to speak.
Right. The original is always better than the rest.
Absolutely. Tony will also be available for autographs and pose photos for a nominal fee. And again, while admission is free, we want you to come on down to the TV studio. Whether you're in Boston or anywhere around the world, we need as much fan support as possible. We have great items for sale on BostonWrestling.com. We're starting to use eBay more. The more fans that participate in getting these shows produced, the more Tony will be here. I know, Tony, our goal has been to try and get you here on a weekly basis if the fans will support.
Yes, you know, and one thing about Boston Media that they does for a lot of us legends, Vince does a lot for us, but he keeps us undercover a lot. But with Boston Media, you can get to see Tony, you get to see the Iron Sheik, you can get to see the Tito Santana, and come and meet us live and listen to some of our stories, because some of the things that we did in our younger days, a lot of it being legal today, first of all.
Very true.
But it was a different world, and I was lucky to see the old world and see the coming of the new world.
WWE isn't going to produce a 3-DVD set for every superstar they ever had under contract. That's why these types of shows are so important, especially where we lose so many legends on a yearly basis. So again, we send out the invitation to you Friday night, March the 1st, right here at MWF Studios, Melrose, Massachusetts. Check out BostonWrestling.com for complete event information. Wrestling fans, I'm Dan Maurice.
And I'm Mr. USA, Tony Atlas.
We want to personally thank you for watching this program and supporting our great efforts to give you the best of professional wrestling stories and in-ring action with the superstars and legends of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Thank you. Infinity Key, a truly natural online language training experience. 25,000 minutes. That's what you'll need to invest. Invest 25,000 minutes with Infinity Key, and we'll build you a portfolio of language experiences designed to accelerate your personal progress. The coach will help you strike the right balance between passive acquisition and active application of your target language. InvestKey's algorithms and coaches guide you along the clearest, quickest path forward on your journey to fluency. Visit www.infinitykey.rocks for more information and follow Infinity Key on Facebook at facebook.com/InfinityKey.
Lowell on Saturday, February 9th. Be a part of the hype as NXT Live brings the action. See NXT Champion Tommaso Ciampa, Aleister Black, NXT Women's Champion Shayna Baszler, North American Champion Ricochet, Adam Cole and the Undisputed Era, Johnny Gargano, Velveteen Dream, Kairi Sane, and many more of the hottest NXT superstars. It's NXT Live in Lowell on Saturday, February 9th. Tickets are available.
This is Mick Foley.
This is Harley Race.
This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
And this is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there live.
Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Maurice.
And I'm WWE Hall of Famer, Mr. USA, Tony Atlas.
As we promised you, fans, in the month of February, right now, WWE is ready to go live on Raw at the Moda Center in Portland, Oregon. But for us, every Monday before Raw in February, we're going to have a special Wrestling Insiders episode with a Black History Month theme. On the Wrestling Insider episodes, we're going to look at superstars that have not been inducted into the Hall of Fame as of yet. And then on Elimination Chamber weekend, before the big pay-per-view, Tony and I have a special full-length Memories and Legends episode where we're going to look at some of the great African Americans that have been inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. We're going to have a lot of fun, and perhaps produce some great history for fans to enjoy for years to come.
Yes, and you know, when people think of Black History Month, they only think about the African Americans that were successful, and I'm always trying to bring in that it was more involved than just African Americans. Like you take like Cowboy Bill Watts, for example. He was the first promoter to make Ernie Ladd the first Black booker, and also run some of the first Black world champion, and Vince Sr., who made me and Rocky the first world champion. And then all through history, there was a lot of non-Blacks people that helped Black people to get to where they were, such people like John Quincy Adams, you know, and so on. So I would like to also talk a little bit on like people like Bill Watts and people that also helped, and George Scott, who helped me get started. And really, you know, behind every great man, there's a woman. Where behind the success of every African American in America, there was a non-Black person that helped that person to achieve his goal. So we didn't do it alone. There was other people that were to join the fight that was not of African American descent. And Bill Watts in the wrestling world and Vince McMahon Sr. was two of the people that
pioneers.
Pioneer of really pushing Blacks athletes and using them to their best ability. You know, when Ernie Ladd took the book, he was the booker. So in other words, in Louisiana, the Mid-South wrestling, the number 2 guy in Mid-South in the 70s, 80s was Ernie the Cat Ladd. And the top wrestler in the NWA, due to Bill Watts, was Ron Summers. And the top tag team in the WWF during that time was Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson. And it was all done by people that was not of African American descent. So there was a lot of people involved that I think don't get the recognition that they so rightly deserve. Bill Watts should be a part of anything dealing with wrestling and African American week.
Well, I tell you, Tony, I think this series in the month of February, not only is it great for longtime wrestling fans to take a trip down memory lane, but also for a lot of the younger fans that maybe aren't familiar with some of the names we're going to discuss,
like
get a chance
Dusty
to become
Rhodes,
familiar
you know,
with them.
Dusty Rhodes
well,
was
Dusty's
a great,
not exactly black, but he acted that way.
Sputnik Monroe, Sputnik Monroe in Memphis, Tennessee, they used to have it called a crow nest.
Yeah.
And where blacks had to set up in the balcony, they couldn't set on the floor. And Sputnik Monroe during that time, he was managed by Moolah. Moolah was called a slave girl there. And he said, black people money are just as good as white people money. Why come the blacks can't set with wherever they want to set due to the fact they paid money? So
I believe that was the first territory.
A guy that stood up for black people during that time was a guy named Sputnik Monroe. And once again, he was of Caucasian descent.
Correct. All right, wrestling fans. Here in Boston Wrestling Sports and the Millennium Wrestling Federation, we certainly care about Black History Month. Right now, we're going to take a brief timeout. When we come back, we're going to kick off this month-long series. Stand by.
Kingston on Sunday, February 10th. Be a part of the hype as NXT Live brings the action. See NXT Champion Tommaso Ciampa, Aleister Black, NXT Women's Champion Shayna Baszler, North American Champion Ricochet, Adam Cole and the Undisputed Era, Johnny Gargano, Velveteen Dream, Maurice, and many more of the hottest NXT superstars. It's NXT Live in Kingston on Sunday, February 10th. Tickets are available.
See the moments.
Generation X invades WCW.
You'll always remember. Like never before.
Occupy Raw has taken over.
With Raw, the first 25 years, packed with rare photos, profiles of your favorite superstars, and so much more. From the very first Raw to the 25th anniversary, it's the ultimate guide to WWE's flagship show. Raw, the first 25 years. Available now.
Grand Rapids on Monday, February 11th. Monday Night Raw returns live with a massive main event after a shocking betrayal.
Oh my God!
Seth Rollins collides with Dean Ambrose for the Intercontinental Championship. Plus, Finn Balor battles Drew McIntyre one-on-one. And don't miss Ronda Rousey and many more. It's WWE Raw live in Grand Rapids, Monday, February 11th. Tickets and ringside packages are available.
Wrestling fans, welcome back to Wrestling Insiders. I'm Dan Marotti along with Tony Atlas. Tony, we're going to start our Black History Month Wrestling Insider series. We're going to start with a gentleman that we both know very well, a man I consider to be a friend. He was at a time the Millennium Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion. He appeared at our event that we had at the Boston Garden, Tony. Talk about a rarity for an independent promotion such as ours to have an event at a major league facility like the Boston Garden. I'm talking about a man I consider to be one of the greatest athletes to ever compete in a professional wrestling ring, a real deal with an amateur background, the standard gold Shelton Benjamin.
Yes, Shelton Benjamin, he's one outstanding amateur wrestler, and he's also, but most definitely, a great wrestler. I was fortunate enough to manage Mark Henry, and I believe it was WrestleMania 25.
Correct.
Where Mark Henry, where Shelton Benjamin competed in a ladder match.
Money in the bank.
The Money in the Bank, and the ability that young man had gave, and the dedication that he had gave to the business, we would make anybody very proud. If you ever saw one of his matches or met him in person, he's a wonderful individual in person, and a very, very great athlete. He's about as good an amateur as Jack Swagger was.
He was in the collegiate ranks with Brock Lesnar.
Yes, and you know, that took a lot of doing. Yeah, Shelton Benjamin, he's one really, really outstanding performer, wrestler, and a great gentleman. Just a great person.
You know, Tony, and this might come across as a slight to some people, but I think Shelton is one of the most underrated wrestlers I've ever seen. He's not someone that reached that main event level. He's never been a world champion in WWE, so to speak. But his body of work since he debuted on the main roster back in, I think, late 2002 all the way to the present day is phenomenal.
Yes, and if you stop and look at it, even though you may think that he's been underrated, but if you look at it, the history that he have gave to the company, I mean, he had a very good run for many years. I think he's going on his 20th year with the WWE.
Not that long, but he made his debut in 2002 after a couple of years in developmental.
Yeah, so he got a good 15, 16 years already behind him as a WWE superstar. So he had a wonderful. But the thing about ratings is that a lot of it is not so much judged by the office itself. Time change, the interest of the fans change, and there are very few wrestlers that could keep the fans year after year after year. And you know, unless you even you take as great as Hulk Hogan was, eventually he started losing his popularity among the fans.
Sure, he sure did.
You know, he went from the greatest wrestler in the Saints, Bruno Sammartino and Gorgeous George. I mean, he came in number 2 to them two guys and Ric Flair. But he, you know, he still got his name out there. But at one time, the fans got interested more like Stone Cold Steve also and Shawn Michaels, and then the Hulkamania era started out. But there's one wrestler that kept his era going ever since the early 90s, and that's The Undertaker.
Correct.
So his run have probably been as greater than any run, I would say, of anyone, and longer even than the great Bruno Sammartino.
Do you think it might be fair to say that Shelton was maybe a few years ahead of his time? As time has gone on, the smart fans, so to speak, have become very appreciative of what they call online work rate.
Yeah.
And Shelton, I think, was ahead of his time almost with some of his outstanding
that
moves,
makes sense.
maneuvers,
Yeah.
at a time when maybe WWE was more character focused.
Exactly, yeah.
And Shelton was already wrestling at a pace, in a way, that fans really appreciate right now in 2019.
Well, see, like I was, a lot of the ratings and stuff is not necessarily done by the WWE or the McMahon family. A lot of it is based on the fan and the ratings. So, like for example, if they put Tony Atlas on a car in Madison Square Garden and 2,000 people show up to see Tony Atlas, but then they put you, for example, on and 10,000 people show up
That's usually what I draw,
to see you.
About 10,000.
Yes,
yeah.
but the more than likely, the promotion is going to go more with you, because the thing about wrestling, even though it's a sport, but it's also a sport and a business too. So supply and demand. So a lot of people much rather have during that period. Shelton had a lot of competition. He had to go against Shawn Michaels, had to go against Undertaker, and it was just the field is so full now of great wrestlers. Right, in my day, you had a main event, semi-main, and then you had preliminary wrestlers. Now you don't have preliminary guys anymore. All the guys are wrestling superstars. So the competition for Shelton is much greater than the competition for me and Rocky or JYD, because they didn't have all the top wrestlers in the world at that time. They have the top wrestlers in the WWE at that time. I mean, they had the top wrestlers in the NWA, top wrestlers in the AWA, top wrestlers in Japan, but it was never before to put them all in one bucket. So it was a lot easier for me and Rocky Johnson and Junkyard Dog and Hulk Hogan to get over and get that top rating, because we didn't have the competition that Shelton have to face. Because you can't find an underdog in the WWE no more. I mean, everybody there could be a main event. Every match, every WWE match could be a main event match anyway. It's the same thing with the women division that they just started. I mean, they got some of the top women. You got Rousey, Charlotte Flair, Mick and Jane. I mean, the Boss. I mean, you go on. And before, we may have maybe one top woman wrestler, would probably be a Moolah or Wendy Rickler at that time, and then they would bring in what they call a preliminary wrestler to go around the circuit with them. But never before would they never have so many superstars to compete against, which make the show greater and more entertaining now than what it was nowadays, because I didn't have the competition that Shelton had. I probably wouldn't have went as far as I went if I was faced with the uphill battle that he's faced with.
Well, in WWE, probably now for the past 20 years, as opposed to being your traditional old school type setup of a wrestling promotion, it's like an all-star game. Baseball or basketball. Every top just about every top superstar in wrestling is in that one company.
that one area. Exactly right. The only people I had to worry about, I was the only guy doing the press slam, so I didn't have to worry about nobody around doing that. Jimmy Snuka was the only guy jumping off the top rope, and that's why he became so famous from that one move. Whereas today, everybody in the dressing room come off the top rope, and just about everybody in the dressing room could press slam a man over his head. So like I said, the competition, like if you watch old magazines or get old photographs on YouTube, when Arnold Schwarzenegger won his first Mr. Olympia competition, there was only 5 people he had to compete against.
Right.
Today, you go to the Mr. Olympia contest, you can compete against 100 people. And it's same thing in the wrestling world. There was not that many wrestlers, especially during my day, that participated in bodybuilding. That's what me and my friend Scott was talking about earlier on our way down here. By the way, Scott, the guy that made this action figure y'all been looking at. But we were discussing the fact that the wrestling have changed so much because the competition now is greater than ever. With football, I mean, my God, how you going to find them many great players back in the 50s, or the 60s, or the 70s? Like you said, what Vince did, it took the best in the world and put it all in one, and tell them to fight to see who's going to be the top.
So I guess a good analogy would be, just because you're not one of the top 10 in WWE,
you're one of the best in the world.
Does not mean you're not one of the best in the world.
In the world. You have to be one of the best in the world to be that.
I want to run a thought by you, Tony. And you can share your opinion as I'll share mine. I think in 2004, it was just about a week or so after I became disabled from the accident I was in, they did a draft where they separated Raw and SmackDown, and they sent Shelton Benjamin over from SmackDown as a tag team to Raw as a single, to try and really push him. It almost reminded me of the Sting Ric Flair Clash of the Champions match, where Shelton, only in this encounter, he went over clean on Triple H. In the following week, instead of building it up as this major victory for Shelton, they treated it almost as if it was a slip on the banana peel. And before I go, let me just continue my thought. A little more than a year later, May of 2005, right down the road at the Boston Garden, they had one of the great matches in Monday Night Raw history, featured in that Raw 25 book behind us. It was the Gold Rush tournament, where Shelton Benjamin and Shawn Michaels had one of the great matches in the 25-plus year history of Monday Night Raw. Again, Shelton came out on the losing end But the fan response to Shelton, both with that Triple H match in 2004 and the Shawn Michaels match in 2005, said to me that the fans were willing to get behind the guy as a main event talent. Didn't quite work out that way. Again, he's had a very successful run in WWE, but do you think WWE missed the boat where the fans wanted it that bad? Even in 2019, when we engage with the fans on Twitter, usually when it comes to SmackDown, Shelton and the Usos are two routines that the fans would like to see much more of.
Well, the fans, from just my 40-some, almost 50-some years in the business, what I have learned, I got in a debate one time with CM Punk at Ohio Valley about old school versus new school. And because what we had in our day, we just had television.
Right.
And you just come on late at night.
Right.
So everybody didn't get to see wrestling. And if you didn't watch the 1 hour program, then you missed wrestling that whole week. Now we got what you call technology.
Yes.
Where people is able to follow matches and they ready to treat and they can get on Twitter. You take, like, there was one guy that made his career off of Twitter. He had the biggest Twitter account. What was his name? Oh my goodness. He was there when I was there in 2008. Was it Jack Swagger? He was there. Jack Swagger was with him. I can't. I'll probably think of his name. But you probably think of it for.
He was with Jack Swagger, and is it not
he was
Zeb
there
Coulter?
he was there with Jack Swagger, and they did a few things with him. They changed his gimmick a couple of times. He was there in 2008 with me, but he was all over.
What was his gimmick?
What was that kid's name? Hot dang it.
What did he look like?
He looked kind of like, at first he had long hair. He looked kind of like John Morrison when he had the long hair. There was a blonde-headed kid that was with him. And the blonde-headed kid left and he stayed. But anyway, make a long story short, he built his whole thing off of Twitter.
Yeah.
He had a larger Twitter account.
It'd be great to know if we knew who you were talking about, but we'll
Yes,
figure
yes,
it out,
it
I'm
probably-
sure.
probably
The
comes to me
fans
after
that
the
watch the
program.
show are very smart. They'll put the
They
comments.
probably know who I'm talking about.
They
because, because he was always he was always on Twitter, and I remember Vince come back and said, "What is a Twitter?" And it was in 2008, and he had so much a big follower.
Yeah.
Because back during the Vince McMahon Jr. takeover, fans could not communicate with wrestlers.
Right.
So when the internet came, you could talk directly to Jack Swagger. You could talk directly to Shelton Benjamin. You could talk directly to Undertaker. And now, as you can see, the leader of our country, our commander-in-chief, people can communicate with him.
He loves to tweet.
on the internet. Now, you go back to JFK time or Bill Clinton time, there was no way you could communicate with Bill Clinton.
Imagine some of the tweets that Bill Clinton would have gotten the Monica Lewinsky scandal.
Oh, yeah.
That's a different story for a different time,
Yes,
though,
but
Tony. But again,
but technology, a lot of guys got to the top not just from their wrestling ability alone. If Vince McMahon, he's a businessman.
Right.
And if he see that you popular over here, he don't believe in leaving. He believe in leaving no fan behind. If he says if you got a follower over here, Vince would do something to keep that following over here, because he know if he add that to this, everything's like Walmart now. You know, in the older days, you go to one store for your shoes, go to another store for your shirts and clothes, go to another store for your candy, go to another store for your grocery, go to another store for your automobile. Now you go to Walmart and everything you want is right there. So Vince believes in supply and demand, not just for just what these people over here is like it, but he feels not to leave anybody out of the mix.
Well, Tony, you really didn't answer the question, so I'll try one more time. Do you think WWE missed the boat as far as turning Shelton into a main event player long term?
It's never up to the WWE, what I'm trying to say.
I'm asking, if you were the booker, would you have pushed for it?
I have to go by the ratings.
You have to go by the ratings.
And that's what Vince
Well,
goes by.
the fan response was very hot for Shelton at that point.
Yep. I'll give you a prime example about the ratings. I was in WCW, and I was supposed to fight Ron Summers.
Right.
Well, I said some things that a black person can say, but a person of Caucasian persuasion could not say.
Yes.
So, once I said a few things, I upset a couple of people. So they contacted WCW, Bill Watts. They said they no longer wanted me to be on their television.
Really?
You see, and that's what have happened cable and internet is great in one way because you're able to get your message out to a lot of people. Unfortunately, your message could go to certain people that don't take kindly to what you say.
Well, Shelton's never had that problem. He's very politically correct.
Right, but see, a lot of people they write in and they write about what they want. So if 70% of the audience want to see Jack Swagger, and you got 30% of the audience want to see more of Shelton Benjamin, even though Shelton Benjamin is a much better performer, you have to go with what the fan wants. Not to put him down or nothing, but I don't think that Hulk Hogan was ever the wrestler, and also I put myself on that list too, was never the performer that Ric Flair was. But he overridden Ric Flair in less than a year. In a couple of months, he was the biggest name in pro wrestling, even though Ric Flair took him 10 years to develop his name, but Ric Flair didn't have the media that Hogan had. He didn't have the exposure that Hogan had. Even though he was a better performer, in my opinion, I think they both was great athletes, but Ric Flair was in a class of his own, but he never reached the status of Hulk Hogan, even though he was a better performer, and even now he's still loved by a lot of people and everything. But Hogan, timing, like you said earlier, is everything. Right. If me and Rocky had became black champion in 2002 instead of 1982, it wouldn't have the impact that it had when we did it. Our timing was just perfect for that type of thing. That's, I believe, why Vince never did a Legend House 2. The time is not right for it. Because Legend House 1 is still out there. Right. And it's still making, people still enjoying it. Yeah. So you have to wait till people don't want to see that no more before you can show them this. You have to get the most mileage out of everything you do in the world of entertainment. And there's a lot of things. Like I remember with this program, I was in New York, and it played on Broadway, Cat. Cat? Yeah, Cat. C-A-T-S.
Oh, Cats.
Cat.
Oh, okay.
You remember that, the Broadway play?
I'm familiar with
they
the
dress
name.
up like cats and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was on Broadway for what, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, they had a big run. They had a Hogan run.
Yeah, 10, 15 years, but people wanted to see this. So they keep it out there as long as, it's like a grocery store. I put sugar on the shelf, and long that sugar sell, I'm gonna order more sugar. And once I put something on the shelf and it don't move, if I can't move that product, then I would disuse that product and put a product there that I can move. And that's what happened when you get the bigger a company get. In the older days, Vince Sr. could determine exactly what he's gonna do with Rocky Johnson, exactly what he's gonna do with Tony Atlas, exactly what he's gonna do with Bruno Sammartino. But Vince Jr. don't have that luxury. He may think that, oh, I think Shelton be world champion, but then we look at the ratings, they look at what the fans want, and the fans, they different. They may love you for a year, and they want to see you for a whole year. Then next year, hey, let's see the other guy now.
They still tell us now, I say Shelton and the Usos, for the fans we engage with on social media, those are the two routines I think they'd like to see more of in WWE.
Yeah. But
again, we're just one Twitter with over 50,000 great fans at MWF Project X. But Tony, you've been in the professional wrestling industry now going on you'll be going on your 6th decade in a few years from now. Where does Shelton rank among some of the great pure athletes you've ever seen?
In my opinion, for his athletic ability, there's only one guy that I would say was a better wrestler than Shelton Benjamin. That was a guy called Dory Dixon.
Dory Dixon.
Dory Dixon, and nobody knows.
I'm not familiar with Dory.
And he reminded me so much of Shelton. Had a great physique, did the same moves. Shelton, if you take Shelton, Rey Mysterio, and Dory Dixon, and have them all the wrestlers, they're identical in the ring.
Really?
Movement right. Yep.
So Shelton is the second greatest athlete you've seen in your time in wrestling.
Yeah.
That's a pretty high compliment, Tony.
Well, I tell you, Sweet Brown Sugar was like that too. I mean, they got springs in their legs.
Yeah.
I mean, Shelton could spring on anything.
Like a cat.
Yeah. And Doyle Dixon was like that, you know. And you meet very few guys that come along with that type of athleticism, you know. Most of us are we wrestle, we pretty grounded.
Right.
These guys were like airplanes. I'm in the Air Force.
Well, I tell you, Tony, I have to thank our good friend, a man that sat in that very chair, Jim Ross. He was the one that set us up with Shelton when he was released from WWE back in 2010. We had some great times with Shelton, some great events. And, you know, I'm sure he'd much rather have a stay of another 10, 15 years in WWE. But, you know, if that doesn't happen, he knows we'd love to have him back here.
Yeah.
But there's one thing about Shelton that I like more than anything, Tony, that I like to remind him of. He's several years older than me. And he doesn't like that reminder. But that's a different story for a different time. Tony, any final thoughts on the gold standard himself, Shelton Benjamin?
I wish him all the luck in the world. He's a very, very good friend of mine. He's one of the very few people outside of Teddy Long and Mark Henry that gave Tony Atchison a call after my release. I only had 4 people to call me after my release. That was Howard Finkerton, Shelton Benjamin, Mark Henry, and Teddy Long.
Well, everybody loves Howard Finkelton.
Yeah, Howard's a wonderful person.
He's a great guy. All right, and only that, you know what, you got to throw out there because it's important. Shelton's also a really good dad.
He's one of my best friends. I got a lot of respect for that young man. He always treated me with, and he used to do a thing in the ring. Maybe if you watch some of the matches, you're going to see it. Him and R-Truth, they saw my video.
The foot video.
And my foot video. Now, you can order that. Just call Dan Morata.
Give me a call.
Right here.
Yeah, Dan
and he
Morata.
can send you a copy of the Tony Atlas foot video where a girl kicked me in the face 50 times. I flip over, she kicked me in the face another 50 times. And then she take her fist and punch me in the face 50 times. Whee! Boy, that was wonderful. But Shelton and R-Truth used to do it in the ring. And nobody noticed but me, Shelton. R-Truth would get down on the ground, and then Shelton would put the boots on, and R-Truth would do, And if you ever see Shelton Benjamin, you got to go on the tape and look for a match with Shelton Benjamin and R-Truth. And now you know what's going on. You're going to laugh your behind off. And I was the only one that knew. And the R-Truth said, Tony, we're going to do your shoe gimmick tonight. And he would take a bump and go down. Then he would do the same thing I would do on the floor with the girl be kicking me.
Well, you know what, Shelton? He's a comical guy.
He's a great guy.
All right, wrestling fans, you heard it from the Hall of Famer himself. We'll be back after this brief timeout.
Tom's River on Thursday, February 7th. Be a part of the hype as NXT Live brings the action. See NXT Champion Tommaso Ciampa, Aleister Black, NXT Women's Champion Shayna Baszler, North American Champion Ricochet, Adam Cole and the Undisputed Era, Johnny Gargano, Velveteen Dream, Kairi Sane, and many more of the hottest NXT superstars. It's NXT Live in Tom's River on Thursday, February 7th. Tickets are available.
You think you know your favorite superstar? Did you know about Sasha's favorite cousin? What about AJ's tattoos? Chris Jericho's expensive taste? No. You need the book that has everything you want to know about more than 200 of your favorite WWE superstars. It's the WWE Ultimate Superstar Guide.
Edinburgh. On Friday, February 15th, WWE Live returns with a triple main event as 2019 Royal Rumble winner Seth Rollins takes on Drew McIntyre in an epic battle. Plus, Braun Strowman collides with Baron Corbin one-on-one. And the baddest woman on the planet, Ronda Rousey, clashes with Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's Championship. It's the WWE Live Road to WrestleMania Tour in Edinburgh, Friday, February 15th. Tickets and WWE Superstar Experience packages are available.
Tony, what a way to kick off our Black History Month series. Mr. Money in the Bank, the gold standard, Shelton Benjamin. We're going to have more fun to come in the month of February.
Yes, we will. You know, I feel so blessed to be raised up. As I say this, people hear me say this, I sound like a broken record. I say this too many times. But I'm so lucky to be born in this great country. I know I hear people always talk about how bad this is and how bad that is, but I've been living here for nearly 6 centuries, over 6 centuries. And to me,
Well, wait a minute, 6 centuries?
Well, I've been around a long time. I'll go all the way back Cleopatra.
Oh, all right.
Oh, yeah, I remember old Cleopatra.
Yeah.
She used to be with the sheep back there in
I think she lives in the Hall of Famer Mark Dustin's basement.
That's right, in the basement. I just remember old Cleopatra.
Yeah.
And old Queen Elizabeth used to hang out a lot with Mr. Wrestling #2, Johnny Walker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember all them back in the old 1700s. They don't fool me. I remember.
All right.
Yeah, but I was raised in a country that if you're ready to apply yourself, really to work hard and keep your dreams alive, the American dream is always here. And Dusty Rhodes represented that. Came up poor, didn't have nothing, became one of the greatest superstars in the world. Tony Atlas started with nothing, became a WWE Hall of Famer. And you look back, Bruno Sammartino, Alvin Puskett, all these guys started with nothing, but ended up on top of the world. So we live in America. And if you put your dreams out there, you believe in yourself, like my good friend sitting over there, Scott, he believe in what he do wonderful work. And if he keep that dream alive, it will happen for him. Don't let nobody take away your dream. This is America, and dreams do come true here.
All right, Tony, we got to get a couple of cheap plugs in before we go. Again, every Monday we have special Wrestling Insiders with the Black History Month theme. Elimination Chamber Sunday, we have a full-length Memories and Legends Hall of Fame episode where we look at some of the greats WWE is enshrined in their Hall of Fame, but that isn't enough, Tony. Oh, no, we need as much Tony as we can get, baby, because on our good friend, the little Dutch boy's favorite holiday, Valentine's Day. Tony, you're going to be discussing what Valentine's Day means to you. It's going to be very interesting. If that wasn't enough, Friday night, March the 1st, Tony is going to be back here in this very studio. Free admission. The following day, the Pro Wrestling Fan Fest at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Huntersville, Connecticut.
I'm going to be there.
We're going to be there live, baby. And if
That's
that wasn't enough,
signing autograph, taking pictures, shaking hands, and kissing babies.
Friday, April the 5th, Saturday, April the 6th. It's WrestleMania weekend. All roads lead to the Big Apple. Me, you, maybe some other friends are going to be joining us at WrestleCon. Again,
And I'm going to become the oldest and first senior citizen WWE World Champion. You hear me, Vince? You should put that belt on me, Vince. I'm telling you, it'd be one of your dreams.
All right, Tony, unbelievable. Again, fans, like, share, and subscribe these great videos.
I could do it, Vince.
And more than anything, head on over to patreon.com/Boston Wrestling for as little as $5.99 per month. You won't believe the access you get. Full-length studio shoot interview DVDs, ad-free, full-screen Memories and Legends episodes with early access for you. Millennium Wrestling Federation matches. We have the Daniel Bryan contest when he came in as WWE United States Champion.
I could beat him, too.
To our little promotion. But for Tony Atlas, I'm Dan Marotti. We'll see you next Monday for Wrestling Insiders. Good night.
Poughkeepsie on Friday, February 8th. Be a part of the hype as NXT Live brings the action. See NXT Champion Tommaso Ciampa, Aleister Black, NXT Women's Champion Shayna Baszler, North American Champion Ricochet, Adam Cole and the Undisputed Era, Johnny Gargano, Velveteen Dream, Kairi Sane, and many more of the hottest NXT superstars. It's NXT Live in Poughkeepsie on Friday, February 8th. Tickets are available